Yes, so I first met Philippe some time back at one of the conferences when we were still doing them in person. And I remember fighting for a space in the room, thinking, wow, this is a small room, and realizing that actually it's because half the world wanted to be there to hear what he was saying. So Philippe Lyon is Senior Director, Analytics and Data Visualization at Oracle. And I think you'll soon hear him speak, but he is absolutely passionate about his topic. And most interesting to me is he's always aware of the latest and greatest. And what I love is that he doesn't just show you a deck. He generally will whip you through something very practical and show you it in action. So without further ado, Philippe, thank you for joining us today. We're honored that you've been able to make the time for us, and we look forward to hearing more from you right now.
Roger, thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you everyone here, and for the opportunity also to take a moment to talk to you about OAC and OML integration. So I have to tell you, I got the Jack and Rose question right, but that's about it. So I feel a little bit, that was fun, by the way, and thanks for this, because I was able to at least get a question right. Let me share my screen and let's make sure, I assume you can hear me fine, right?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let me share, and
we'll go off now and leave you to it, but holler for help if you need it.
Thank you very much. So let me toggle to my deck. Hopefully you can see my slide. Yes.
Yes, looks great.
Thanks. So, so first of all, that was a great presentation just before me, and I'm very stressed here because I'm an analytics guy, and I'm not really a data scientist. I'm not at all a data scientist, and like I said, I didn't get these questions even right on the Q&A. But I would like to still talk to you about the business value of the work that we're doing on integrating Oracle Analytics with Oracle Machine Learning in the next 20-25 minutes. And for this, I will have hopefully very few slides and quite a lot of demos. So let me go on. First, quick slide about Oracle Analytics itself. OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud, but also comes in Oracle Analytics on-prem, so OAS, Oracle Analytics Server. Basically a platform to allow end users, analysts, to do all sorts of analytics in an organization, whether it's self-service analytics in the middle or governed analytics using semantic models, unique source of truth, curated data models, or on the right of this slide, augmented analytics, which does include as part of OAC a machine learning box at the bottom. So I'm not going to go diver on this slide. I'm going to assume that you have an idea of what Oracle Analytics is about. It's about visualizing data and doing analytics, but as part of it, there is the machine learning capability as well. And since we're here on this machine learning day, I just wanted to highlight this. Now, what is this? Well, basically a capability for analysts to easily do some simple machine learning. So for the whole cycle of machine learning, OAC does include some native capability for variety of data loading and data preparation. There are all sorts of data preparation available as part of Oracle Analytics. Obviously, feature exploration and data exploration, visual exploration, lots of capability here, as well as a module about doing some model building, model designing as part of OAC. And once I have the model, I can do evaluation and I can loop through this cycle and still within OAC. And then eventually, once I'm happy with this within OAC, I can deploy a model and have my users consume it. So this is all cool. And this is already part of OAC. And if you've ever used OAC and be curious about it, you'll probably easily find that in the experience, the UI of OAC. However, this is not what I'm here to talk to you about. That capability is ML-centric as part of OAC, but I would like to talk to you today about something else. And for this, I took the liberty, I really enjoyed Barry's presentation, and I just quickly took a screenshot of his last quote where he was saying that he's just shown us how to design and tune models using ADW, ML, and OAC, and eventually that by adding machine learning into business processes, data sets and screens, that's how we can extract some real value of ML. And this is exactly what I would like to use the next 20 minutes to show you on something that we've just developed. Charlie, I liked your expression about business machine learning, because that's what it is about. Once we have a machine learning model, once we have very deep algorithms building very accurate models, then we need to make this be usable and consumable by business people. And this is what I want to talk to you about. So I would like to demo to you here what we are just about to ship as part of Oracle Analytics 5.7. And Oracle Analytics 5.7 will be GA. It was supposed to be GA in June. It's been delayed by a few weeks, so it will ship here in July. And that includes the capability of OAC directly consuming data-based trained machine learning. So OML models, these models that Barry has shown us that he had developed, can now be consumed directly into OAC, and I'll show you this. And another quick one that I may show you if I have time, which is the ability of OAC directly running database and advanced analytics or analytics SQLs. So these 2 points here are a sign of the tight integration that we're building between OAC and ADW or Oracle database for these two to act together and enable you to extract a higher value of their capabilities, respective capabilities. So you've seen the demo of Barry, and he's already shown you a lot of the UI or of the experience with OAC about visualizing the quality and accuracy of his models, right? Now, let me tell you what's coming in addition to this. My data scientist team in my organization has developed powerful model, just like Barry has done within the database, just like many of us may have done within the Oracle database using OML. What we're now bringing into OAC as a capability is, to begin with, the capability for an administrative user to register the model in OAC, in the UI of OAC, and business users just consuming it, applying these models in OAC data flows, just like they are doing for the native OAC machine learning. Eventually, the whole model executes down in ADW. Nothing is fetched from one environment to another one. The data remains in the database. OML processes it right there, which is a very strong value point, as you know. And OAC just invokes that capability and returns the resulting data set. Let me show you what I mean. Let me toggle to the product. This is my OAC UI here. This is the home page of OAC. And if you're familiar with it, that's where I would have some existing models that I may have built as part of OAC. But in this case, I'm interested in registering a machine learning model, for example, a model that Barry may have built or Roger may have built or Charlie may have built in some database. So I'm going to click on my register ML model. And the first thing is that I'm being prompted by which database is it that this model exists on. And I have created a few connections to different databases here. So these are databases. I could have ADWs. It's the same whether they are Oracle database or cloud ADWs, any type of Oracle database here. So I have a few that I have connected to. And I'm going to click on one here, which is local OML, where I have a few models here. And here's a list of models that exist in this Oracle database. So these are models that have been built using notebooks or SQL in the database. So when I click on a model, I basically see a few information about, okay, what is this model? That's the name that maybe Charlie has given to the model in the database, and it's a classification model, and it's using a decision tree algorithm, and the target is a field called buy insurance, and it uses some input columns here and these are the input columns that and the type that this classification is looking for. And of course, different outputs, predictions, cost details, probability, and so on. And a few parameters to give me information about what this model is about. Again, target is to buy or not insurance. What is the algorithm name, and a few hyperparameters here, such as the depth and others here. Well, you know, I'm not so familiar with all of these models. So if I click around, I'm going to see different types of model, and which one is it that I'm interested in? Here's, I'm trying to find one that doesn't have buy insurance as a target. Well, they're all buying insurance. Let me see here. Here's one about LTV bin. This one is going to predict LTV bin, and it's a decision tree again. And that's the one that maybe I'm interested with. Let me look at the input columns. Let's say this is the one that I want the OAC users to be able to consume. So here I am simply looking at the database content, and I'm registering a model in this database. Actually, you know what? Let me redo one thing quickly because I went a little too fast. Let me pick this model again, and let me call it live demo model. Okay, just so that we recognize it. I just picked the same. Now, if I go in OAC in my machine learning tab, I do see this live demo model that we just created right now. Actually, we created two. I registered two twice, the same one with a different name. Okay, so from now on, if the audience in this call had access to this OAC that I'm using, you could just, all of you, run this ADW ML model on your data set. How do you do this? Nothing changes compared to what exists already. The way that you run a machine learning model in OAC today is to create a data flow. So let me create a data flow, and I'm going to now switch from being an admin and moving to being an analyst or a user, and I will just consume that model. So what do I need to do this, right? So I need a data set. So I have some insurance data here in a database. I'm selecting this insurance data. If you remember, the model that we registered was about predicting LTV, lifetime value bin. So I'm picking a data set that I have here. This data set sits in a database, and hopefully this is the same database as the one that we used for registering the model. So let's see if it is. I'm adding a node now, which is apply model. That exists today. That's the way that people are doing machine learning with OAC today. But except that now when I apply model, I see a bunch of choices here. And these choices are models that have been built by Oracle Analytics, some of them, and models that reside in the database. You can see the live model that we just created a minute ago. You can see other models from the database that would predict something else. But what I'm interested in here right now is the live demo model. Now, of course, this list here is depending on the permissioning that I have access to in OAC. So the administrator could have said, could have given Charlie access to everything, and Philippe could have accessed only a few of them, and Roger could have accessed a few others. There is a permissioning layer on top of this as part of OAC itself. But in this case, I'm seeing all the models I have. I'm gonna create this, and now I have an apply model in OAC. And what do I see? I see my data set. Let me hide the data set for a second. I see outputs, I see parameters, and I see inputs. Okay, so inputs is simply the mapping of what the model expects with columns in my data set. Now, luckily, column names in my data set were similar to the ones that the model expected, that you suspect was done on purpose. But if that wasn't the case, I could have overridden this and just map manually which column I want to use when I run this model. So let me set this back to correct. So the system discovered that, hey, you know, no need to go to this process, I can do it for you. Parameters is just a parameter as part of the running of the model. And then Outputs is simply what I want to have as an output. I'm going to just say, for the sake of it, give me the prediction, the probability, and the details. And you know what? That's it. Let me save this data set. The result of the prediction, live result, will be created into that same database where the data set and the model reside. So I'm going to call it result or apply. That's the table name in the database. And we're done. So maybe I want to just tweak this a little bit, and just maybe we want to count customers. Maybe we want age to be an attribute. And what we have, probability here, maybe an average. And you know what? I'm going, the bandwidth of the network doesn't hurt the, okay, so here we go. We're ready now. We just need to run this data flow. And let's run it. So we're running, let's call it live flow. Save and run. What is going on here is OAC is simply sending the right SQL, calling the model to the database. No data is traveling between OAC and the database. It's just as if I was running a select prediction SQL from SQL developer into the database. And this just complete, as you see. The result of this is that if I go to my data sets now, I have a new data set, which is the live results, which is a result of what we just did. That was created. So it was created in the database, of course, but it was registered as a result data set in OAC. So now, remember, I am an analyst, right? So I don't have to worry here about what we just did. I didn't have to know about notebooks, nor excuse me, nor SQL, nor any of that aspect. And I got from my data set a new scored data set here with, you know, what did we predict? We predicted LTV, so customer ID we set as a count. So this is how, these are the prediction results for my customers. And maybe I want to break down this by, I can do all sorts of analysis here now. You saw a lot of great analysis from Barry on this, on his topic here. So I'm not going to match this, but basically now as an analyst, I can have fun as to, okay, well, I have my low valued, probable low valued customers here in this age range, and probable high value or very high value customers in this age range. And then from then onwards, I can do all sorts of slicing. Let's see if there's any, seem to be some difference between gender, male and female, and so on. So what I just did here is, as an analyst, it took me a few seconds to apply a model that either Barry or Charlie or Roger may have built as part of the database with the whole data science knowledge and skills, but I don't have this. Yet I was able to quickly apply and consume this model with my own data set. Now, luckily, my data set had the same column names as the ones that the model expected, but I could have overridden this, as you've seen. And that's possible with any models in the database. So any assets that exist as part of machine learning in the database will now be available in OAC the same way that you've seen me doing it. Now, one quick one that I want to highlight, let me go back to my deck for a second. You've seen me go through this whole cycle here. And what I've shown you is a real live demo of the product. That's as easy as it is. And did it perform? It did perform because everything happened in the database. Nothing here was constrained to any transit of any kind between the database and OAC. So maybe one quick one that I may want to show you, well, that's just sort of a trick. You know that in the database, as part of the model design, I'm going to create a data set here and go to this database. As part of the model design, there are, so I'm going to go into the schema where this model exists. There are quite a few views. So this is the model we've been using. And the database provides me with lots of information about this model right there. So this is not a pre-built integration, but I'm simply creating a data set in OAC. Let me make it live so it'll be faster. And this, besides me scoring my data with the model, I can now simply, let me turn this to an attribute. An attribute. This was an attribute as well. Okay, and that's it. So I'm doing it live here. So I'm going to just, you'll see where I'm going in a second. I now have access to some data in the database where I can explain the model that we're looking at. So I just showed you the scoring results of the model, but I could just as well try to explain partition name. Let's leave it like this. Create a table. And the prediction, we need the prediction value. Oh, we don't have the prediction value, it doesn't matter. So now I can get to understand each node in the tree and what are the attributes. If I put this as a filter, for instance, what are each attributes that are involved into the 3 branches that I'm looking at, and what are the operator and the value. I'm missing the value. I actually picked the wrong view here. It doesn't matter. What my point is to say that I have the ability in OAC to go and explain exactly what the model did based on the whole metadata views that we have as part of the deliverable for OML. So this, I just did it live here. It took me 2 minutes to get. And with this, I can go to my business users and tell them, here's the result, and here's why it's doing it this way. In this case, it's a classification, so it's easier, it's more visual. I am looking at the time. Charlie, do I have 2 more minutes to show the database
please.
analytics stuff?
Yeah,
so
please.
this is about the integration of OML into OAC, and my point, going back to Barry's presentation here, is for me as an analyst now, I can consume the very powerful stuff that exists in the database, and I can do this in a very easy way without having to know anything on the syntax behind.
Hey, Philippe, just before you go there, I mean, I love this. This is great. What's been the customer reaction to this so far?
We've had a lot of, well, this is not GA yet. So it'll be GA next week, hopefully. So we don't have customer reactions, but we have a lot of customer interactions on multiple aspects. One, the ability to expose, to deploy or consume models into business, OML models to business users. That's one thing, and the ability also to make, reuse value of existing ML assets in the database by leveraging them in OAC just the way I'm showing it. So it's been a great reaction, to answer your question.
Super, thank you.
Now, one quick one, I want to take 2 minutes to just quickly show you another one, which if I go back to my data flows, and if I create a data flow, now forget the pre-built models. I think I have something about schools here. So now this is a little less of ML, right? But the database has a lot of, well, let me start. This is a data set that that has some schools and some metrics about students that have passed by months for each of these schools, right? And you can see the syntax of this data set. And if I want to do some analytics with it, I'm going to be in trouble with that because of the format of the data. The database has a lot of SQLs that are advanced, that are helping many of these use cases, right? And that there's a node in the data flow now that puts this at my fingertips. Unpivoting exactly what I need here. Sampling is another clause. some dynamic predictive queries here, like anomaly detection or clustering. Soon enough, you'll see text tokenization. You will see market basket analysis. There is a frequent item set.
These are things that you guys are adding rather than somebody having to write them themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is calling database capabilities, Charlie. So this is calling your SQLs, but it's making it into a user-friendly UI here so that the user doesn't have to worry about what's going on behind the scenes. And if I unpivot, or if I sample, or if I just want to change this to, detect anomalies here, maybe I would want to go back to my other data set and detect anomalies. And again, I would just have to click a few columns, run this, and everything would be pushed down to the database. This list that you're seeing is going to grow pretty quick, but in 5.7, that's the first iteration that you will see with this. This is very exciting to me because it puts the database power at the fingertips of the analysts. I see that I'm like a minute behind here. Are there any questions, Charlie, that you want us to address?
There's one more question here, but I'm just going to, just a comment. This is fantastic. Those of us who are not Barry actually can get our heads around this. So
yeah, like me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I did have a question. It's not directly related, but it's more related to product releases, I think, which says, it's from Sridhar Swayampakula, and he says, when can we expect the Google BigQuery connector in OAC?
That is on the roadmap, but it's not going to be in 5.7.
Okay.
So not in the next release, but it will make it. I don't know on the top of my mind. I'll have to check.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Philippe, are these what you're showing? Is this available on premises and cloud?
Any Oracle database, on premises or cloud.
Perfect.
Very good.
Yep. Any other questions? I mean, you've answered almost everything right on the fly. I mean, this is absolutely excellent. Thank you so much for this. Any other questions from anyone here? Last chance to take advantage of all the talent we have on our Zoom meeting today.
Thank you very much, guys, for the opportunity to show this to you, and hopefully you'll find this useful when you use it. Feel free to get back to us or me directly with any questions on this. I'll be happy to help you with that.
Thanks, Philippe. A pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I thought that all French people spoke fast, but Philippe speaks faster. Yes.
Does a good job.
Get it done quickly.
So I think, Roger, we are continuing on our tour. We have Sandesh